Shekalim Perek Beis Mishnah Aleph Nitzarfim Shekalim Lidarkonos. We're getting now into the actual procedural aspect of how to collect the Maseches HaShekel. We've been talking about who has to give a shekel, Kohen, Levi, who do you forcibly collect from, who do you not forcibly collect from, the kalbon, the extra, what we call the exchange fee, or the hechreya, the amount to make sure that the silver was equal to Moshe Rabbeinu's silver. That extra charge, we called it the extra 20 agurot, the kalbon. We learned a bit about the kalbon. Now we're going to some procedural rules. You didn't have to bring your Maseches HaShekel to the Beis Hamikdash. We learned that Beis Din made announcements all over Eretz Yisrael on Rosh Chodesh Adar that everybody has to pay the Maseches HaShekel by Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the money is going to start being used for korbanos of the new year. The Jewish New Year in terms of months and for purposes of korbanos begins on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. When the Jews left Mitzrayim, right before they left Mitzrayim, Hashem said to Moshe and Aaron, "Achodesh hazeh lachem rosh chodashim." This month, Nisan, is the start of the Jewish year in terms of months. And we learn out of a pasuk that the korbanos, the public korbanos that are going to be brought for the year, have to come from a truma chadasha, a new collection. So money that was collected last, make believe today's Rosh Chodesh Nisan, money that was collected last year Rosh Chodesh Nisan was used the whole year to buy animals for the korban tamid in the morning, the afternoon, the korban musaf of Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, Yom Tov, Chol HaMoed. All the things that we're going to learn about later in the Maseches. They have to buy a parah aduma. There are a lot of things that require money to run the Beis Hamikdash. So that was used for the 12 months. When Rosh Chodesh Nisan came today, you were not permitted to purchase new korbanos. You need to bring animals beginning today, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, starting in the morning, the korban tamid shel shachar. How did you buy that animal? That animal had to be bought mitruma chadasha, from the new collection. The money that was left over from last year, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, was used for other things, which we'll learn about later in the Masechta, but buying korbanos for the next 12 months, today's Rosh Chodesh Nisan, for the next 12 months, had to come from the new collection. So here we need a little introduction to learn this Mishnah. We're dealing obviously before the times of trains, planes, helicopters, taxis, etc. So collections went on all over Eretz Yisrael. The announcements began Rosh Chodesh Adar. On the 15th day of Adar, the Shulchani, the money changers, opened up tables. The Mishnah says they opened up the tables. First Mishnah, Shekalim Perek Aleph, Mishnah Gimel. On the 15th day, they opened the Shulchanos in the Medina. And on the 25th day, they opened the Shulchanos in the Mikdash. Remember, we learned the Machlokas Rashi Rambam. Rashi learns that the word Medina means Yerushalayim. On the 15th day, the Shulchanos opened in Yerushalayim. And on the 25th day, they opened inside the Beis Hamikdash. The Rambam learns Medina means outside Yerushalayim, the country. And Mikdash does not necessarily mean the Beis Hamikdash. It includes the whole city of Yerushalayim. Be that as it may, you have Rosh Chodesh Nisan for the Rosh Chodesh Adar for the announcements, the 15th of Adar for the opening of the change tables in the Medina, and the 25th day, the opening of the tables in the Mikdash. Now, that doesn't mean that every Jew had to go and bring his money to Yerushalayim, obviously. The tables opened up. Sometimes a person didn't have a half a shekel, so he went to the money changer. He brought whatever he brought. He brought his shekel, and he would get 2 half shekels in return, and he would have to pay the kalbon. Okay. You pay the fee to the private money collector. You have to pay the same fee to the Beis Hamikdash collector. Now, till now, we were learning about there's the shulchanos. Some people brought their money to the Beis Hamikdash. Let's say you live in the Golan, or you live all the way down south. The money's being collected. Every city is collecting the money from the Jewish people who live in that city. That money is then going to be taken up to Yerushalayim by 1, 2, 5, whatever amount of people the city designated to now transport the money to Yerushalayim. So a person lived in Beersheba. He has his Maseches HaShekel. He gives it to the city collector. The city collector collects everything that he can in that city. And he starts his trek up to Yerushalayim. He may not get to Yerushalayim by Rosh Chodesh Nisan. He may not get there till after Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So this Mishnah is going to deal with that issue of the collections that did not reach Yerushalayim, and this was not unusual. The collectors are coming from all the way up north, from all the way down south. They're all coming to Yerushalayim with money with Maseches HaShekels of entire cities. So we're going to learn about what happens in those cases. In the context of transporting the money to the Beis Hamikdash, you can have a city where everybody's given their Maseches HaShekel, and the collector or the collectors of the city may have hundreds or thousands of these half shekels. And we're talking about silver. There has to be a certain weight of silver, as we discussed. And this is a tremendous amount to carry. There's no trunks, there's no helicopters, etc. So you're going to be on a camel or on a horse, and you've got a lot of heavy Maseches HaShekels with you. So the Mishnah now tells us, Perek Beis, Mishnah Aleph, Mitzorfim shkolim lidarkonos mipnei masoi haderech. Because of the weight, masui is the burden of the weight of traveling with so much back up to Yerushalayim or down to Yerushalayim. The collectors were allowed to change the Maseches HaShekels into darkonot. Darkonot is a type of gold coin. It's not silver, it's gold, that was extant at that time. And as you can see on your page, on page 9, they give you a picture. They're showing you that 4 Maseches HaShekel of those days equaled a darkon. Darkon doesn't mean a passport here. It's a darkon. It's a type of coin. And 4 Maseches HaShekels of silver equaled 1 gold darkon. So if the collectors of the city found it necessary to change the Maseches HaShekels into darkons, so if they had hundreds or thousands of Maseches HaShekels, they were able to take every 4 Maseches HaShekels, turn it into a darkon, and they ended up traveling with less weight to the Beis HaMikdash, because gold, 1 coin of gold, which takes the place of 4 coins of silver, the gold has the value of the 4 coins of silver, but is not as weighty as 4 coins of silver. And this was a special dispensation that was given to the collectors of the city, that they don't have to bring up the physical Maseches HaShekel, but they can actually convert them into darkonot. Now, the Mishnah says, so now that's transporting through the collectors to the Beis HaMikdash. Kshem shehoyu shofarot b'mikdash, the same way that there were shofarot in the Beis HaMikdash. What is a shofar? It's not something you blow. If you take a look at it, well, it is something you blow, but not in this case. If you flip the page to page 10, they're showing you a picture of a shofar. That is a collector's box. The collector's box was known as a shofar in those days. And the reason is because it has a narrow end, and then it gets wider and wider, like a shofar. The part that you put in your mouth is narrow, and then the shofar expands and gets bigger. So this is the collector's box. The reason why they made the collector's box in this shape is obvious. You can throw your coins in, But once the coin is in there, you can't get your hand in there to try to steal any of them. So it was a one-way box. So the Mishnah says, back to page 9, Shem shehoyu shofarot b'mikdash. The same way that there were shofarot in the mikdash. What does the word mikdash mean? Well, if you're learning like Rashi, mikdash means the Beis Hamikdash. And if you're learning like the Rambam, mikdash means the whole city of Yerushalayim. So the same way that there were collection boxes in the mikdash, meaning if someone actually wanted to go to the Beis Hamikdash, according to Rashi, or wanted to go to the city of Yerushalayim, according to the Rambam, these kind of collection boxes were in the Beis Hamikdash, according to Rashi, or in Yerushalayim, according to the Rambam, and you were able to actually put your Machzis HaShekel into this collection box. Now, there's a question here. I haven't seen anyone answer this question yet, but I'm doing some research. As I said last week when we were learning about the Kalabon, one of the many areas that I have absolutely zero expertise in, the extent that I have expertise in anything, but certainly I have zero in Kalbon Halacha. Remember we learned last week that according to the Chachomim, who we paskin like, a Kalabon, the purpose of that extra 20 agurot besides the Machzis HaShekel was an exchange fee. So a person who had a shekel and wanted to exchange the shekel into 2 half shekels had to pay an exchange fee outside the Beis Hamikdash to a private money changer. If he came to the Beis Hamikdash and he didn't have a Machzis HaShekel, he had to pay the Kalbon as well. We dealt with that last week. However, let's say someone came to the Beis Hamikdash with an exact Machzis HaShekel. So Chacham hold, you don't have to pay the Kalbon fee because you're giving a Machzis HaShekel. There's no exchange rate. However, According to Reb Meir held that the Kalbon is Hechreya, which means that there's a question whether the amount of silver in a Machzis HaShekel at that time was the weight of Moshe Rabbeinu's Machzis HaShekel. So to make sure that you gave a full Machzis HaShekel, you threw in the value of a full Machzis HaShekel of Moshe Rabbeinu, you also had to give 20 agurot, the Kalbon. Okay? We gave the example of 20 agurot. Now, we don't paskin like Reb Meir, we paskin like the Chachomim. Therefore, a person that comes to the Beis Hamikdash and says, here's my Machzis HaShekel, that's it. He doesn't pay Kalbon. According to Reb Meir, if somebody comes to the Beis Hamikdash and says, here's my Machzis HaShekel, he has to pay Kalbon. Now, what happens if a person doesn't come to the Beis Hamikdash? He comes to one of these shofarot, one of these collection boxes. According to the Chachamim, if he has an exact Machzis HaShekel, he just puts his Machzis HaShekel in there. But what do you do according to Reb Meir? According to Reb Meir, even if you have a Machzis HaShekel, you have to pay the Machzis HaShekel and you have to pay the Kalbon. So how did people pay their Machzis HaShekel at these collection boxes? Did they put the Machzis HaShekel in there and the 20 agurot? Did they put the Machzis HaShekel in there and there was a separate box for the 20 agurot? I don't know, and it's possible that the Mefarshim do not deal with this question because we don't ask them like Reb Meir anyway. So following the Shitas Chachamim, a person has his Machzis HaShekel and he lives in Be'er Sheva or he lives in Yerushalayim. Whatever the case is, Rashi, Rambam, he has only a shekel at home. He goes to his local shulchani. He says, I need 2 half shekels. The shulchani says, okay, the charge is 20 agurot. You pay the money change at 20 agurot. Now you have 2 half shekels. You go over to the nearest shofar collection box and you put 1 Machzis HaShekel in there and you're done according to the Chachamim. So the same way that there were shofarot b'mikdash, kach hayu shofarot, turning the page to 10 b'mdina. There were also these collection boxes. The word Medina, what does it mean? According to Rashi, in Yerushalayim, outside the Beis Hamikdash is Medina. According to the Rambam, Medina means outside Yerushalayim, the rest of Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so these boxes, these collection boxes were set up. So now we know, after we learned Perek Aleph, there was a question raised last week about the Gizbar, the Shulchani. The Gizbar is the treasurer of the Beis Hamikdash. If you wanted to bring your Matzah Shekel to the Beis Hamikdash, Gesund Heit, there were collection boxes there. If you wanted to put it in your citywide collection box, you can put it in your citywide collection box. And then at a certain point of time, the designated city collectors would take the boxes in their city, open the boxes. They probably had the keys of some sort. And they opened these boxes, and if it wasn't that heavy, they just brought the Matzah Shekel to the Beis Hamikdash. If it was too heavy, what did they do? They opened the boxes, and they convert the four half shekels for a darkon. And then they take the darkonim to Yerushalayim. Now they're on the road. The collectors are on the road, and they're bringing the money, whether it's silver Matzah shekels, or gold darkonim, or a mixture of gold darkonim and silver matzah shekel, whatever the case is, they're transporting the money to Yerushalayim. Now here we're going to have a little introduction to how they did the purchasing of animals for korbanos. And the reason we need this introduction now is what happens if the collectors, the collectors from Beersheba, the collectors from the Golan, they're going to Yerushalayim with the gold and the silver, and they get robbed, or they lose the money. What do you do with that? Who has to pay the Matzah Shekel? The money stolen from the collectors, or the collectors lose it? Now this is going to raise issues for those who have learned the Bava Metzia. There's a difference between a shomer chinam and a shomer sacha. Did you hire, are you paying someone to watch something for you, or is he watching it for you for free? A shomer chinam, you go over to your neighbor and you say, listen, I'm leaving for a week. I'm giving you my silver leichter. Can you watch it for a week? He says, sure, I'll watch it for a week. That's one case. Or you can go to your neighbor and say, listen, I'm leaving for a week. I have a big, expensive silver leichter. Can I put it in your house and you'll watch it, and I'll pay you $100 for the week as a fee for watching my silver leichter. The first case is a shomer chinam. He's watching it for free. The second case, a shomer sacha. He's watching it, he's being paid. Obviously, the shomer sacha is going to be more responsible because he's being paid than a shomer chinam who is not being paid. So there are all different halachas about shomer chinam versus shomer sacha, and we're not going to get into that here, although this Mishnah is the subject of discussion in Bava Metzia in the sugya of daled shomim, the different types of shomim, which in secular law they call bailments, and much of the secular law of bailments is a product of Torah law, as developed in Dayan Grunwald's Sefer. So we're going to have a case now in the Mishnah. They're transporting the money to Yerushalayim, the collectors, and they lose the money, or the money stolen from them. So now we need to understand the case of how the money is used in the Beis Hamikdash. Today is Rosh Chodesh Nisan. The animal that's going to be bought today, the animal that's going to be used today in the Beis Hamikdash, the korban tamid shel shachar, is already going to be bought with the new money. The new money is not going to arrive in the Beis Hamikdash today, not all the money. Of course, there's money that people put Matzah shekel in the shofar box in the Beis Hamikdash. They have that money. There's money that was put in the shofar box in Yerushalayim, and they'll have that money. But there's a lot of money that's coming from all over Eretz Yisrael that's not going to arrive in the Beis Hamikdash until after Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Okay? That's a fact. That's the way it's going to be. Not all the money is going to get to Yerushalayim. Not all the Matzah shekels are going to get to Yerushalayim by Rosh Chodesh Nisan. However, we have a little problem. As we've discussed, the korban tamid has to have in it the quote-unquote collection of every Jew. Every Jew has to have a share in the korbanos. We gave the example of Korach, where Moshe said, Rebbeinu Shalom, leave part of the korban tamid on the mizbeach as a sign that the Korach and his people's donation to the Maktas HaShekel was not consumed on the Mizbeach. It was a korban tamid. But every Jew needs to have a share in the korban tamid. Now we have a problem. It's Rosh Chodesh Nisan today. We're going to bring a korban this morning. We're going to bring a korban in the afternoon. We're going to bring korbanos tomorrow. We're going to bring korbanos every single day, public offerings. We don't know when all the money is going to reach the Beis HaMikdash. It may be in a week, it may be 2 weeks, it may be 3 weeks, maybe a month. We don't know. But all these Jews whose Maktas HaShekel has not arrived yet in the Beis HaMikdash and has not been put into the Beis HaMikdash treasury, at this point it would seem that they're not part of the collection. If they're not part of the collection, they're not part of the korban tamid. That's a problem. So what do they do in the Beis HaMikdash? There's something called Trumas Halishka. I'm going to learn all about this week, next week. What they did in the Beis HaMikdash, once the money came to the Beis HaMikdash, and as it came, they had 3 what we'll call huge baskets. The Treasury Department that had a room in the Beis HaMikdash, the Treasury Department had 3 huge baskets. And in these baskets, they put the Maktas HaShekel. That means the Maktas HaShekel of all the Jewish people are in 3 huge baskets. And 3 times a year, the Gizbar, we'll call him the treasurer, would enter this treasury room, and there are a lot of halachas about how he enters the treasury room. We'll get to that. It's an interesting topic in itself. He had to go in a certain way and come out a certain way to make sure that no one would be choshed that when he was in there, he pocketed a couple of Maktas HaShekel for himself because of the Yisem Nekiyim. Jew is mechuyev, the Torah says, to make sure that he keeps his reputation clean. You shouldn't do anything that a person can think that you may have done something wrong. You're not allowed to bring yourself lidei chshad. The same way a person should not be choshed another person, a person shouldn't create a situation where someone else can be choshed him. So when the treasurer goes in there and wants to take out money to buy korbanos, there are certain things that are done to make sure that no one can ever say, oh, you know, the treasury went in there today. He probably pocketed a couple of Maktas HaShekel. So there's a process by which he goes in there, and there's no way that anybody can be choshed that he pocketed some money. The Gizbar, we'll call him now, the treasurer went in there 3 times a year. Not every day, not every 2 weeks. He went in there 3 times a year. And this was calculated, how much money do you need to take out to take care of the korbanos and other needs of the Beis HaMikdash for the next quote-unquote quarter, 4 months. And then he went back in after 4 months. Basically, it didn't work out exactly 4 months. There's a machlokes in the Mishnah, what dates of the year they went in there and withdrew money. But it's 3 times a year they withdrew money. Going back to our case, it's Rosh Chodesh Nisan. In the treasury room of the Beis HaMikdash, they already have Maktas HaShekels. Maktas HaShekels that were put into the shofar box in the Beis HaMikdash. They have it already. Maktas HaShekel that's put in the shofar boxes that were in Yerushalayim. They have it already. There could be even Maktas HaShekel from boxes that are in cities close to Yerushalayim. The collectors succeeded in getting it to the Beis HaMikdash. So these 3 big baskets are slowly filling up. Rosh Chodesh Nisan, they're going to take out money. How much money are they going to take out? So let's, again, this is going to be discussed later. Let's make believe that 100, that all Jews together, and this is done by estimate, and that all Jews together are expected to have 120 Maktas HaShekel. Okay. Chas v'sholom, there should be such a thing. There are 100, it means 120 Jews. We're just trying to keep the number simple. There are 120 Jews that are chayiv machzis hashekel. It could be more machzis hashekel will come because women may decide to bring, and young men under the age of 20 may decide to bring, and others may decide to bring. So it could be more than 120. But let's leave that alone. Let's make believe that the only machzis hashekel that's coming to the Beis Hamikdash is machzis hashekel that's required, and we know that the required amount of machzis hashekel, there are 120 Jews ken yirbu, they're going to be 120 machzis hashekel. How much machzis hashekel is in the Beis Hamikdash right now? So let's say 60. 60 machzis hashekels are in the Beis Hamikdash Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and we're expecting 60 more to come in over time from places that are distant from Yerushalayim. So we expect 120, 60 is already in the Beis Hamikdash. We expect 60 more to come. We're now going to separate money on Rosh Chodesh Nisan in order to buy animals to begin bringing karbonos on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. What percentage are we going to take of the 60 shekel that's right now in the Beis Hamikdash? We're going to take the amount of shekel that we would take, making believe there's 120 shekel. So let's make believe there's the full 120 shekel was collected. And if there was 120 shekel collected, what we would be taking is 40 shekel out for the collection. Okay. So it's Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and we're going to play make-believe. So Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the Gizber goes into the treasury room, and there's only 60 machzis hashekels there. And if you just do statistically against machzis hashekel, the 60, he would really only take 20. If he only takes 20 out of 60, that means that the 60 machzis hashekel that should be coming in, he's not taking into consideration. He has only 60 in the treasury room. He's going to take out 20. And he's going to use that to buy animals, which means who has a chelek, who has a portion in the karbonos? Only the 60 people who gave the machzis hashekel, because he's taking off 20, which is the amount that you take off of 60. And he's taking 20 out of 60. And the 60 that's somewhere on the roads, he's not even counting in. So those machzis hashekel that are on the roads are not even being considered in the karbonos. He's going to buy animals only with 20 shekel, and with those 20 shekel, the 60 people who gave the machzis shekel that's in the Beis Hamikdash will get credit for the carbon tamid. The other 60 shekels that are on the road representing 60 other Jews, they're not going to get credit in the carbon tamid until their money gets to the Beis Hamikdash. That doesn't work because we have to have every Jew being a partner in the carbon. So what did the Gizbar do? He went into the treasury room. And in the treasury room, there's only 60 shekel. He didn't take off 20. He made believe that the whole 120 is there. And if 120 is there, he can take off 40. And by taking off 40, that's the value of how much you would take off for all of the Jewish people. Make believe there's 120. Instead of looking at it as 60 and only taking off 20, and the other Jews don't have a share in it, make believe you have 120 shekel in front of you and take off 40. And that means that you've taken off the value that would be how much you would take off if all 120 shekel there, and therefore every Jew has a chelek in the carbon tamid. But the 120 is not there. That's okay. It's on its way. And the Gizbar in the treasury room is already saying to himself, I am now taking off money, not only for that which is in the room right now, but I'm already separating money for the Jews whose money is on the road and coming to the Beis Hamikdash. And when it gets in here, we'll put it back in the box. So he's already taking out money, not for just the shekel in front of him, but he's taking off money for the shekel that's on the road that will arrive. Because he took off 40 and not 20, he's now going to go out and buy animals that have the value of machzis hashekel for every yid. So every yid will have a chelik in the korban tamid. Now we can begin to understand the Mishnah. Case number 1 on page 10. B'nei ha'ir shesholchu eshikleya. People of a city, they sent their machzis hashekels with the city collector, and he's on his way to Yerushalayim. V'nignavu, the money got stolen. O she'avdu, the money got lost. Now what do we do? Im nitruma hatruma, if the gizbar has already taken off 40 shekel from the 60 in our case, he's already gone into the room and he's taken 40 shekel out of the room. Nishboim la gizborim. The collector is going to have to make a shvua. Either way, the collector has to make a shvua. He has to swear, and he has to say that the thing was stolen or the thing was lost. And this is a halacha of Shomrim that we're not going to go into. It's Bab Metzia. It's the last parak of Maseches Shavuos. It's Hilcha Shomrim. A Shomer has to swear. And he has to swear that the money was stolen or the money was lost. This is to make sure that he didn't pocket the money himself or that he's not involved in some kind of conspiracy. So he makes a shvua, and once he makes a shvua, he doesn't have to repay the money. The money was stolen, or the money was lost, and let's take the case simple. I'm a shei machinam. I volunteered for the city to take the money and bring it up to the Beis HaMikdash. I'm a shei machinam. I'm not being paid for this, and I swear that the money was stolen, or I swear the money got lost. It wasn't my fault. Therefore, he doesn't have to pay. What do we do now? We'll see in a moment. But who do you swear to? So the first case is Nishboyim la Gizborim. The question is, the money got stolen, the money got lost. At the moment the money was stolen or lost, who owned the money? So if the money in the Beis HaMikdash had been separated by the treasurer, meaning the treasurer already went into the room and he took off 40 instead of 20 shekel. What does that mean? When he took off the 40 instead of the 20, he was already taking into account this money that was on the road that got stolen. So whose money got stolen? Not the people from the city. It's the Beis HaMikdash's money that got stolen. Because when he lost the money, or the money got stolen, the Gizbar already took off 40 instead of 20 because he was already counting that stolen money in the money he took off in the Beis HaMikdash. So it's Beis HaMikdash money. So the Shomer has to swear to the Gizbar it got stolen or it got lost. Because it was Beis HaMikdash money, and you swear to the owner, to the representative of the Beis HaMikdash, the Gizbar. Im nitruma hatruma, if the Gizbar already took off from the treasury room the truma, nishborim la Gizbarim, then the collector has to make his shavua for the benefit of the Gizbar. V'im lav, if the money has not been separated yet, the Gizbar didn't go into the room. He hasn't taken off any money yet. It's before Rosh Chodesh Nisan, probably. So whose money was it? The money still belonged to the people in the city. The Gizbar has not gone into the room to take out any money. Therefore, the money that the collector had and that got stolen was still under the ownership of the people of the city. Nishboim levnei ha'ir. Then the collector is required to make his shvua, the same shvua, I swear it was lost, I swear it was stolen, to the people of the city. The shvua is made to the owner of the money. Whoever owns the money is the person the shomer makes the shvua to. So if the money was owned by the Beis HaMikdash, because the Gizbar already took into account the money and already took off 40 shekel instead of 20, That means the money that was on the road belonged to the Beis Hamikdash. So the Shomer has to swear to the Gizbar who represents the Beis Hamikdash. If the money was stolen or lost before the Gizbar took off any money from the treasury room, that money still belonged to the people of the city. Then the Shomer collector has to make the shvur for the benefit of the city because they still own the money. Okay, so he makes a shvur, whether he makes the shvur to the people of the city or he makes the shvur to the Gizbar, he's done. He doesn't have to repay the money. He's patur. He made his shvur. But now what's the problem? The people of the city weren't yotzei the maktas hashekel. Someone stole the money, or the money was lost. The collector does not have to repay it, and the Beis Hamikdash doesn't have its money. Uvenei ha'ir shoklan tachtein. The people in the city have to give another maktas hashekel. No other way around it. The shomer, the collector, doesn't have to pay it. It was lost or stolen. He's not required to repay it. The Beis Hamikdash didn't get the maktas hashekel, so the people have to give a second maktas hashekel. Now what happens? Nimtza'u. What happens if you find the money? The people of the city collected maktas hashekel again, a second time. They sent it to the Beis Hamikdash. And now once they sent it to the Beis Hamikdash, they found, or hechzir haganavim, or the robbers returned the money. So now you have two sets of maktas hashekel from the same city. What do you do with it? It's not going back to the owners, because both sets of maktas hashekel became hegdish. When the person said, this is the maktas hashekel, it became hegdish. So he made the first maktas hashekel hegdish, it got stolen. The collector made a shvua, he doesn't have to pay it. The person in the city gave a second maktas hashekel. So both of the maktas hashekels are hegdish. Elu ve'elu shkalim, the Mishnah says, both the first and the second are both hegdish and have the din of a maktas hashekel. Ve'ein olin lahem l'shana haba. And the people of the city do not get credit for next year. So I've given out two maktas hashekels to the Beis Hamikdash. I don't get a return of either one because they both belong to hegdish. Maybe I can get a credit for next year. I don't get a credit for next year either. What happens is both of them become maktas hashekel. One of them is going to be maktas hashekel to buy karbonis for this year, and one of them is going to be for other things in the Beis Hamikdash, which we'll learn about later. There are two pots going on in the Beis Hamikdash. One is called the maktas hashekel for the Trumas Halishka, and one is going to be for other expenses in the Beis Hamikdash. So, in the case where the Ganovim return the money, or the lost money is found, the first maktas hashekel and the second maktas hashekel belong to the Beis Hamikdash. You don't get credit for the following year. And what do you do now with two maktas hashekels? One maktas hashekel is going to be used for real maktas hashekel for the karbonis that are coming up. And we're going to learn that there are two different ways to learn Yerushalmi. You now have two maktas hashekels. The first maktas hashekel I wanted to give was stolen and now returned. The second maktas hashekel is the one that I replaced the first one with, and now the first one's been found or returned. So we're going to learn simply. The first maktas hashekel that I gave and was stolen or lost and now was found and returned, that's the real maktas hashekel that's going to go for karbonis. The second maktas hashekel that I gave as a replacement, but now it's not needed as a replacement, I don't get credit next year. I can't get it back. That second maktas hashekel is going to be used for other things in the Beis Hamikdash, not for the quote-unquote maktas hashekel of karbonis. That is Shekalim Perek Beis Mishnah Aleph. We're beginning to see the procedure of transporting money, the procedure of collecting. There are these collection boxes in cities. There are collectors that take it to Yerushalayim. If it gets too heavy, you can switch maktas hashekels into darkonim, into gold coins. So we're beginning to see the process of collection and getting it to Yerushalayim and with the realization that not all of it gets to Yerushalayim on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, but nevertheless to make sure that every year has a chelik in the Machtas HaShekel, they made sure that the Gizbar, when he went into the treasury room to take out money for the first korbanos for the new year, he calculated how much more money is yet going to come. And based upon that, he took out money by some ratio from the room, the treasury room, so that every yid had a chelik in the korban tamid. And then eventually, when the money reaches the Beis HaMikdash, it goes into the box and basically replenishes the money that he originally took out on behalf of those Jews whose money had not yet reached the Beis HaMikdash. I assume that the way they estimated how many more half shekels are coming in was based upon last year's collection. And as Ramban speaks about this a bit in Pashas Kisisa, obviously people die during the year, people are born during the year, and people who are not 20, they turn 20 during the year. So you're never going to have an exact number, but based upon what you collected last year, you can get a pretty close count by some kind of statistic. X amount of people have died, X amount of people are born. Not that that's, no gaya, because you have to be 20 years old. And we have also some kind of calculation, how many women donated, although they didn't have to. There's a system. It's not like we're collecting money for the first time. The second Beis HaMikdash, for example, stood for 420 years. It didn't work perfectly for all those years, so the first Beis HaMikdash stood for 410 years. At some point in the process, you have a pretty good statistic of how many people, of how many Machtas HaShekels you're going to be collecting overall for that year.